do you think that some people just have it? Because I've seen like Dana White talks about this from the UFC. They were like, do you think like, people becoming successful and everything, like, do you think people have it, or is there something that you have to do? Is there some like way that you can like force yourself to become successful? And he's just like, I think people just either have it or they don't. So I'm curious. I don't know how I feel about it. I think that for me, it's like circumstances dictate. Some people do just have it, like whatever that killer instinct is, and they're going to go out and hustle and all that stuff. And then I think some people, it's like circumstance forces them to a place where they're just like, they have to do it or else. But like, do you think that, like, do you think some people just have it, or do you think it's something that like you can like consciously be like, I'm going to do these things this year and I'm finally going to make it to whatever I want to make it to?
That is tough. I don't think it's an either or, honestly. If I think that there are some people that have it, that are wired that way.
Right.
But I think just because you're wired that way doesn't mean that you'll be successful with it. And just because you're not wired that way doesn't mean that you can't be successful with it. I think that we have a huge ability to change and to become who we want to become, and modify our habits and our personality. You and I have talked a lot about how you have to be careful with your self-talk. If you say, I'm a perfectionist, I'm a procrastinator, I'm lazy, you will be those things, right?
Yeah.
And just because you are one way does not mean you can't become another way. I think that's very evident with you, and just you being introverted, and how that's been in like your journey over the last couple of years, to where I think you're very good at managing people and interacting with the team and all of those kind of things. And I think when we first started working together, that probably wasn't, something you would have considered a strength.
No.
Or thought could become a strength.
I didn't want to do it at all.
Yeah. And I think it is. So I feel like I have the predisposition for this. I have the personality traits. I think there are certain personality traits that lend themselves to entrepreneurship. I think you need to be, being kind of an eternal optimist, where you always think that it's going to work out. And if I just do these things, like, it's going to pay off eventually. I think that's one of those things that a lot of successful entrepreneurs have. I think this belief that you can do something better than anybody else can, or that you can achieve these big things that other people don't think that you can do. Like a lot of the people that we know that are successful entrepreneurs, they're like, I'm going to make 7 figures. Like, it's just a thing, right? Or I'm going to blow up on this platform. Like, they just know it to be true. And even if no one else believes it, and even if at times they don't believe it, right? Like, they just kind of have that mentality of like, and there's a chip, some of them have that chip on the shoulder mentality of like, oh, you said I can't do this, watch me, right? So I think that's big. I think another one, at least I know for sure I have that, but I think is pretty common with successful entrepreneurs, is this: they're very hard on themselves. So nothing they do is good enough. And so as much as they think they can do anything, they on the day-to-day are like, oh, I can't do this, I'm not good enough at this. Like they kind of like beat themselves up a little bit, but like use that as fuel. So I think that's really common. And then just the ability to like sit down and like get stuff done without excuses. Like, I don't want to do this, but like, whatever, like you hear that a lot in like the fitness industry. Like, what, you think that I want to eat this way? You think that I want to go to the gym every day? Like, I don't want to go to the gym every day. I love the feeling when I'm leaving it, but I hate the feeling of needing to go there. Like, but they do it anyway, And so I think entrepreneurs have a lot of that. So I just think that there's a lot of these kind of personality traits that seem to be common. I think making excuses and feeling sorry for yourself is a trait that most successful entrepreneurs don't have. A lot of entrepreneurs do have that trait, but they're not the most successful ones, right? I think taking responsibility for like everything that happens is my fault and only I can change it.
Right.
And,
yeah.
I have a lot of people in my life, in my like personal sphere, and I know you do too from conversations, that they are like that, like, oh, but this is happening to me, and I think
Right.
that's like, and that's like one of the hard things too, when you do this, like you want to help your friends and you want to bring them up and you want them to be part of it. And, I always think of like the rappers that have like all their buddies, in their entourage, but like sometimes like you can want to give that to people, but they don't take it because they're not
Yeah.
willing to take that lifeline and then do the work for it. So I do think there's an element of like, you have to have it or you don't. I think the flip side of that is that we can achieve a lot in life if we're desperate. And so I think we all have a snapping point that can change your personality in an instant based on life circumstances.
Yeah.
So for you, maybe that was like, I'm getting married and I've made $3 and like, I got to make this work. I'm never going back. For me,
Yeah, that probably was a factor.
yeah, for me, it was, Cooper was in the hospital and we couldn't put him in daycare. And I was working at a job where I could work from home instead of the bigger, glitzier law job that I kind of was applying for at the time. And I just said, you know what? I haven't taken this seriously. I need to take this seriously. Right.
Yeah.
And my personality changed and my approach to all of it changed. And my income rapidly grew, like very rapidly.